Итак, мы сегодня постараемся вам показать.
Today, we will try to show you the proper way to teach competition movements for beginner athletes. Alexander, who doesn't know anything, will help me with it. It will be more beneficial for you. Any competition lift tutorial starts with getting into a starting position. You all know that powerlifting consists of 3 exercises: barbell squat, flat bench press, and a deadlift. So, we'll begin with a squat. The first things we need to teach are how to approach the bar. Grip width, getting the bar off the rack and getting into a position before the judge can give you a squat command. First, we'll teach him the grip he should use. The coach should be standing behind to control the grip width. Everything's correct. Putting fingers off and getting under the bar. Very often young lifters will put the bar on the trapezius muscles the way they do in Olympic weightlifting. In powerlifting, you should put the bar on the rear deltoid muscles. After that, the athlete brings his pelvis up front, gets his shoulder blades together and flexes his back muscles. As you can see, we get the bar off the rack only with a tight back, and elbows should be behind the bar. This way they stabilise the back muscles and do not let the bar shift downward. If elbows are under the bar, it will be harder to maintain the bar position and easier to relax the upper back muscles. You should unrack the bar straight up. Make a couple of small steps, not too far because big steps waste too much energy. After the athlete has stood with it for a short time, we can then re-rack the bar, one side and then another. Athlete comes to the bar, gets his grip the same way on both sides, goes under the middle of the bar, puts the other leg in, head up and goes to starting position with a couple of small steps. No need to do big steps since it's a waste of energy. After taking starting position, the athlete returns the bar. The coach should always remain spotting an athlete because beginners can relax their muscles at any point and lose the bar. Unracking the bar and getting into the starting position is the simplest exercise that can be learned during 1 or 2 workouts. You could do it for 5 sets and that will be sufficient to learn. The weight on the bar is not important. For a beginner, you can even use just the bar since we have no idea of a beginner's lifter's squat max. It is very important that the athlete should not unrack the bar with an inclined torso. Like this. It is very important to have both legs under the bar, have the same centre of gravity as the bar and unrack the bar upward. Only after that can he walk out. This is the maximal height of the bar that's been practiced in weightlifting. Some athletes like to put the bar much lower, but usually it's uncomfortable and can be prohibited by the rules of competition. The bar should be held on the rear deltoids and not lower. The reasoning is that if the bar is lower, it will make the torso more inclined and make it harder, almost impossible, for the bar to remain in place on the back. Now let's take a look at the foot positioning and perform a half squat, so the athlete will feel the centre of gravity on his midfoot. This is very important because having the weight on his toes will throw the athlete forwards. If the weight is on his heels, then he might fall back with the weight. The weight should be only on the midfoot. Hence, the centre of the athlete's gravity should be the same as the weights. As you can see, Alex does know already how to approach the bar and unrack it. He doesn't walk out too far. His feet are located at the shoulders width apart. The toes are open and the knees are going in the same direction as the toes are, not forward. As you can see, the coach remains there spotting the beginner athlete. We are performing half squats. The head is up, looking forward and not at the floor. And it's very important to notice that the squat should be performed while holding your breath. He should take a half breath and then squat. Now, once he has done the movement, he can exhale. One more time. Good. Thanks. Since we don't know the athlete's max yet, we start with the empty bar or the weight that the athlete can easily perform 5 to 6 reps with. He can do 3 to 4 sets of this exercise with 1 or 2 minutes rest. For better understanding of the half squat technique, we put the rack height on the half squat level and the athlete only needs to stand up with it. Hold it for a second and put it back on the rack. So this way we train standing up from a half squat. The back should be flexed all the time. The elbows should be pushed backwards. It helps to hold the barbell. And the coach should be spotting at all times. The next step will be to teach an assistance lift for the full squat exercise, which will be squatting to a high box. In our case, we are going to use a bench. We are going to start squatting to the bench, which is higher than parallel. Once this has been mastered, we are going to lower the box to the parallel level, and then to the competition required depth. We start with a high box, which will allow the athlete to squat above parallel. The back muscles remain flexed. The athlete is just doing touch and go squats, never relaxing on the box. It is very important to point and move the knees in the same direction as the toes are pointing. Also, the knees should not go too far forward past the toes. As you can see, the athlete can do this exercise properly, so we can decrease the height of the box. Notice that the athlete shouldn't be too close to the box because that would interfere. The back is always tight. Next step, we will be squatting to a box at parallel. The same exact execution of the movement, but going deeper. Before the movement, we inhale, and after the movement, we exhale. Beginners make the mistake of taking a breath when they have already started the movement. Don't go too close to the box. The coach is constantly spotting the athlete. The third step is we put a box on the level of the depth that is required at the competition. But to all my students, beginners and advanced athletes, I recommend to squat deeper than it's required at the competition. This is because at the competition, when the athlete is attempting maximal weight, they very often squat a bit higher. That's why I'm trying to create a buffer of 1 inch or 2 during training, so when it's competition, the athlete goes to the required depth. Take a breath and stand upright. Keep the back tight.
Вдох. Встаем. Так. 3.
After squatting on a box or bench, those who have mastered this exercise can now start doing a full competition squat. You should make sure the athlete's torso isn't inclined too much at the start, and also the knees should not go too far forward. We showed you the procedure how to teach competition squat movement, which usually takes a month to a month and a half to master, depending on the athlete. Some need more time, some can grasp the technique in a week. It all depends on the athlete's body composition, his flexibility in the ankles, hips and elbows. But obviously we don't teach squat only. After mastering starting position for squat, we can teach getting into the starting position for the bench press. Hence, after the athlete can perform half squats, we can teach unracking the bar for the bench press. So we teach all the movements simultaneously and do not spend a month for one exercise, then a month for another. We should also add assistance lifts while teaching technique in order to strengthen muscles. Among these exercises, we can implement leg presses, hamstring curls, leg extensions and deep squats belted, which will improve strength of glutes, hamstrings and quadriceps. Now we'll go over the bench press. The same way as in squats, we begin with learning the starting position. Unlike squats, in bench press training, we have to teach first how to lie on the bench properly, how to grip the bar and how to unrack the bar. After that, there will be board presses, from a big one to a small one. Only after that can we teach the full competition bench press. Usually athletes try to lie down closer to the bar in order to ease unracking the bar, but it's not right. The athlete should lie down on the bench with the bar directly in front of his eyes. The thumbs are placed next to the markings of the bar so that they are the same length. It is very important always to have a closed grip and not an open one. The coach helps to unrack the bar and spots at all times. After holding the bar for 2 to 3 seconds, the athlete returns the bar to the rack with the coach helping him. After 4 to 5 successful repetitions, we can move on to the next learning exercise. After that, I recommend to my novice athletes and other coaches to start doing board presses. Introduce big board first and then switch to a small one. We take a 12 cm board. The athlete unracks by himself already and brings the bar to the board. In this moment, please pay attention to the positioning of his elbows. If they are moving close to his torso, this indicates that this athlete is prone to have a triceps-dominated bench press. But if the athlete tends to flare the elbows while having a medium grip, that means that a pectoral-dominated bench press will be more appropriate for that athlete. We decrease the height of the board after mastering the big one. If the athlete is performing confidently, we let them bench press from the chest. Another important thing to monitor among novice lifters is to monitor their breathing patterns, since they tend to inhale while lowering the bar and then exhale while pressing. As we all know, and as it's also been proven in the 60s by Arkady Vorobyev, power output increases while holding the breath. The last step is full competition bench press. The coach helps throughout the movement and tells the athlete the breathing cues, taking a breath while the bar is on the locked out arms, then doing the bench press movement and then exhaling when the arms are locked out again. When the bench press is successful with a medium grip, we slowly increase the width of the grip until we reach 81 centimeters legal width. It is extremely important for a novice lifter to lower the bar to the same spot every single time, right below the pecs. Beginners tend to lack consistency. They bring the bar either too low or too high. So, it's okay for a coach to direct athletes to a spot where the bar should be while teaching the movement. The closer the bar is to the neck, the less the chest muscle is involved in the movement, therefore more difficult to press. The further it is away, the more triceps and front delts are involved. The athlete should never let the bar bounce off the chest. It is considered as cheating like in other exercises. It is forbidden to lift the pelvis off the bench as well. I always say to my athletes, you rather fail the press than to lift your bum off. It might become a habit, and on the day of competition the athlete wouldn't notice when his pelvis will lift off the bench. If there is a clearance between you and the bench, that's it, the attempt will be failed, so never lift your bum off the bench. Leg positioning. It completely depends on individuals. Some competitors would have narrow position because they feel more comfortable, some very wide. Ladies tend to have a wider leg position more often than gentlemen. The most important thing is to have stability in your legs. The closer your feet to the pelvis, the bigger the arch in the spine. The further the legs away, the less support they will give to the body. The most important cue we want to teach the athletes is to retract their scapula. For beginners, weight should not play any role. First, the athlete should get familiar with the exercise, then gain the skill, and only after we gradually increase the load when he or she can do the exercise 5 or 6 times without any major errors. As everyone knows, there are 2 main deadlift styles allowed on competition: classic or sumo, but I will add the intermediate style too. This is when your leg position is wider than in classic but narrower than in sumo. Not everyone can position legs very wide, so we are going to show the methodology of learning that can be applied to all styles, but just for clarity we will show classic styles as well as sumo. So, the learning begins all the way from how to approach the bar. If you approach the bar and it touches your legs, when you are trying to reach for the bar with your hands, the shins will push the bar forward, moving your center of gravity to the toes. On the other hand, if the athlete is too far from the bar, the center of gravity also moves forward, making your exercise harder. Ideally, you want the bar to be on the same line as the middle of your foot. Feet must be pointing away from each other and never parallel, even in classic style, and the wider you spread your legs, the greater the foot angle must be. After the correct approach to the bar, the athlete inhales whilst expanding the chest. The athlete then takes the start position. Note that his hands should be positioned externally from legs. The back should be arched. It is a common beginner's mistake, so it's coach's responsibility to control. One hand on the shoulder and the other on the lower back. Also keep in mind that if the pelvis is lifted, the athlete is likely to have his shoulders further over the bar than needed. Ideally, shoulders should be on the same line as the bar, not more than 3 to 4 centimeters over. I don't recommend looking down because it will cause the pelvis to lift. Before the athlete takes an attempt, he should already decide the point where he will be looking. Head positioning affects back positioning. What are the most common mistakes beginners make? When taking start position, the back is rounded. First, it's dangerous. Second, the shoulders are too far away from the center of gravity. If your pelvis is too low, the center of gravity moves too far back on the heels. Ideally, pelvis position should be higher than parallel to the floor. Shoulders should be tight. When deadlifting, you should start slow but gradually accelerate during the pull. There are three types of grip styles. Overhand, when both palms are facing you. Alternate grip, when one hand is under and one hand is over. Now you can see that his thumb is over the four fingers. You can also try locking your thumb like this. With overhand grip, our four-time world champion Sergey Moore was placing his fingers like hooks, also called a monkey grip. His best result was 340 kilos with his own body weight of 82. Now sumo style, unlike the classic style, the athlete is placing his feet wide. In addition, his toes must be pointing away from each other. As we see, the bar is in contact with the legs. The closer the bar to your legs, the easier it is to pull. So, it is necessary that the center of gravity will be placed in the middle of the foot. Here, we also see that pelvis is higher than parallel to the floor. Head is up. Here we have a good starting position. Due to the legs being placed wide, the pelvis is closer to the bar. Please, Alexander. Take an intermediate lifting style. We keep in mind that the shoulders shouldn't go further than 3 to 4 centimeters over the bar. Pelvis as close as possible to the bar. The next step for coaches is to teach how to lift the bar to the level of the knees. 4 times.
И опустили. Еще 4 раза. Так. Как мы видим, спортсмен выполняет.
As we can see, the athlete is lifting the bar with the pause. He inhales air before the repetition and exhales when he lets down the bar. Please demonstrate the same, but with sumo style. Further learning exists in 2 ways. First is to put small blocks, second is to put high blocks, as high as the knees. Now we will demonstrate learning style where you would start with high blocks but gradually lowering them down. First exercise we'll do is a classic style. From here we are teaching the final step of the attempt. Arching a little back, shoulders back. Every attempt should be ended with the same final position. So, we always start learning from bar positioned above the knees. This could be 10 to 15 centimeters above, gradually lowering the bar until it reaches the floor. Sumo, please. Do you see how much smaller the range of movement is in sumo than it is in classic style? Now the bar is positioned lower than the knee joints. This increases the range of movement. As we can see, the athlete presses the bar against his legs. Now show sumo, please. As we can see, the methodology of teaching is the same in sumo as it is in the classic style. The third stage of teaching the deadlift is from the lower blocks, where the bar is positioned in the middle of the shins. Again, we start with the classic style. Note that no matter the level of the bar, it is always close to the legs in every stage of the lift. On many seminars in the USA, UK, Italy, we noticed that this is a common mistake. They all have the bar away from the body, which creates extra difficulty. Good. No rapid movements. Smooth pulls. Yes. But allow the bar to accelerate. Sometimes athletes forget about their head positioning, so I tell them to look at my palm during the repetition. It helps the athletes to concentrate. Don't forget that the head determines the roundness of the back. The last stage of teaching the deadlift, we begin from the platform with full range of movement. Many beginners would lock their knees out during the middle of the lift. This freezes the bar in the air and makes it more difficult to pull. For instance, Alexei Nikulin had the same mistake. He would lock the knees after the bar passes them, even with sumo style. To correct this mistake, I would advise to make pauses for 1 to 2 seconds in every point of the lift. The athlete will not be able to hold the bar away from the body if he does the pauses. See? The athlete committed a mistake. To correct it, he will do the pauses that we talked about. Now the athlete is more comfortable deadlifting. And again. Thank you. I am frequently asked when beginners can start learning the deadlift standing on a box. The deficit deadlift. This is a very hard exercise and I do not recommend it for beginners. Maybe the 2nd or 3rd month of teaching is when the athlete is confident to perform classic style or sumo deadlifting. The beginning height would be 5 centimeters, then gradually increasing to 7 and then 10 centimeters.